You're listening to Trek FM.
Hi, and welcome to From There to Here, Trek FM's celebration of 50 years of Star Trek, in which we watch all 729 episodes of Star Trek from beginning to end, from Enterprise to beyond. My name is Sue from Women at Warp, and I'm here today with Trek FM's Zach Moore.
Hi, Sue. Happy to talk some more Star Trek with you today.
Always a good day when we can talk some Star Trek. So let's jump into it. Our first episode of the day is DS9's Crossover. And we are back in the Mirror Universe. Bashir and Kira are trying to get back to the station from the Gamma Quadrant. Something goes weird in the wormhole. And then they come out of the wormhole and the station is orbiting Bajor. And Intendant Kira is interested in her double and her new human slave.
This is the first time we've seen the Mirror Universe since Mirror Mirror in the original series. Next Generation never had a Mirror Universe episode. We got lots of alternate universes and timelines and things like that, but never the Mirror Universe. And and this is where, and I've said this before on Trek FM and From There to Here. I feel like Deep Space Nine really embraced it being a sequel series to the original series. They weren't afraid of exploring some plot lines, some characters. I mean, we got back in Blood Oath, we have Cora Cloth and Kang. They're talking about this episode. We're visiting the Mirror Universe. So, when TNG started, they needed to establish that they were their own thing. There was a lot of debate in the early seasons about even mentioning things from the original series. They wanted to stand alone. But by the time Deep Space Nine had come along, TNG had established itself arguably as like the brand of Star Trek. And most people thought of Star Trek at that time it was Next Generation. So I think it was a little safer for them to go back into the TOS toy box, and pull out some stories and some concepts and some ideas. And I love Crossover. I love pretty much all of the Deep Space Nine Mirror Universe episodes, and it's always fun to see the characters, be out of character, and what better way to see him than in the Mirror Universe? I mean, you see Intendant Kira is in charge of things. We see Cisco like as a pirate. He's Avery Brooks gets to just be Avery Brooks as Mirror Universe Cisco. It's really fun to see, and there's a lot of weight to this episode too. Since we left Mirror Mirror, the whole universe has flipped on its head. That the humans are slaves to the Bajorans and the Cardassians and the Klingons, and Chief OBrien is one of many slaves, and befriends Julian. Julian tells him about the alternate universe and kind of inspires him to help lead up a revolution, and it's really good stuff. I love this episode. This is probably one of my favorite episodes of the entire series.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun to be back in the Mirror Universe. They do give us a lot of exposition about what happened since Kirk and Spock crossed over, which, for fans since the original series probably wasn't necessary, but for new fans, which, TNG did bring in a lot of new fans who then started watching DS9, maybe that explanation was needed, but we learn, that Spock, that Kirk's visit really changed Spock, and Spock brought in this era of peace. But because the Terran Empire was so peaceful, they were able to be easily overthrown, and now they're slaves. But what's really great is Nana Visitor in this episode, and she just kills it. Every scene, she's absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, speaking of the exposition, normally it would be like, okay, let's sit down and talk about all this. Why do these characters need to explain things to each other they already know? But the great thing is about Kira, she's Bajoran, so she doesn't know anything about Starfleet history or Captain Kirk or any of that. And Intendant Kira says, "Oh, okay. Well, on our side, your Kirk is a historic figure, and he changed our entire universe. So it makes sense that we need to hear that exposition because Kira doesn't know anything about what happened to Mirror Mirror. She didn't watch Star Trek, right? And then she tells Bashir, she's like." After she talks to Intendant Kira, she kind of figures out what's going on. She goes down to talk to Bashir, who has become a slave at Ore Processing Center. She says, "You ever heard of a Starfleet captain named Kirk?" And immediately Bashir's like, "Oh, so that's where we are. Okay, that all makes sense." So that was a cool moment. And what did you think of slave driver Odo? Man, what a hardcore guy he was, right? Mirror Universe Odo.
Odo is the kind of character that whatever situation he finds himself in, he's going to figure out the way that he can do the best for himself, and I also think for others. So I think it makes a lot of sense where he ends up in the Mirror Universe. But I actually really like OBrien.
Mm-hmm.
Mirror Universe OBrien, or Smiley. I don't even know how to describe it. He's not a guy that's necessarily going to lead a revolution, but he's just trying to do what he can to get by. He knows that he is smarter than everybody's giving him credit for, but he's just trying to stay out of the way. But given the opportunity, he will do what he can, and he will help anyone he can on a one-on-one basis, you know?
I got the feels in this episode when O'Brien helps Bashir escape, and he wants to go with him. He's like, you know what? They probably won't like it. I don't care what they say. You're coming with us, buddy. You know, like he's going to take it back and save him from this terrible universe. And who wouldn't want to get out of there, right, if they had the opportunity? But then he has something to stay and fight for because, you know, Kira kind of convinces the Mirror Cisco, like, look at your life, man. You're a joke. You know, this is all you want out of life, and humans are disrespected and all that. And you know, you joke about the flamboyance of Avery Brooks' performance here, especially here as Mirror Cisco, but you can see that deeper layer, too, when, like, you know, Kira calls him to her quarters. You can tell he's like, oh, not again, all right, you know. So he's not happy either. So it's just, there's lots of layers to all these characters when it would be real simple to be like, okay, here's the Mirror Universe, everything's opposite. You know, there's a lot more to them than just that.
Yeah, I think they do a great job, and there's always a kernel of a Mirror Universe character in the characters that we know, right? Because there has to be something there, some reason for them to be the way that they are. So to see that expanded in the Mirror Universe, and then what those characters that we know, how they use, because they have a lot of the same characteristics and drives that we know, how they would use those, how these new Mirror characters would use those in the Mirror Universe to change things and to do things. I don't know if that made any sense, but I think we could have some fantastic stories in a Mirror Universe. Not necessarily that I want a series there, but the stories that can come from that, I think, could be really, really interesting.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And yeah, a little bit of, you know, trivia for this episode before we wrap up our conversation on crossover. You know, Worf was originally supposed to be in this episode. He was going to be in the Garrick role. But for whatever reason, Michael Dorn was not available, you know, Next Generation stuff. And they decided, okay, well, we'll promote Garrick up to that role. So Garrick will be like the number 2 guy. And we'll just use another Klingon. You might recognize like the number 3 guy around. He was a Klingon that was on the Next Generation episode, The Chase. So another familiar character. So it was cool to see, you know, these characters from other parts of Star Trek being on the station. And that's very ironic because, you know, Worf eventually becomes a main character on Deep Space Nine. So that would have been very fortuitous if that went through. But I think it's great. This is just Garrick another chance to shine. I love his disdain for the Intendant. You know, his plan to get rid of Kira and take over. He's like, you're gonna go on sabbatical and explore your pa or something. He's just so disgusted with the Jorans.
It's pretty great.
Well, we could probably spend the next, you know, half of this episode talking about crossover, but we have another great episode coming up next.
Since TNG was keeping Michael Dorn busy,
yeah.
why don't we talk about Preemptive Strike? This is the episode where Lieutenant Ro returns, and she is from advanced tactical training, in fact, and she is sent on an undercover mission to root out a Maquis cell. Man, I love this episode.
Yeah, see, this is a great episode. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about when a series is winding down. I know yesterday I was kind of complaining about Emergence being just such a fluff episode for Next Generation and its stretch run. But, you know, this is stuff that really, it brings back a beloved character. It sets up some stuff from the other series, you know, for Deep Space Nine and Voyager, even this early, you know, with the Maquis, and really has some emotional weight to it. And, you know, Michelle Forbes, I really wish she would have stayed around to be a regular. I mean, she wanted to pursue other things and not be tied down to a television show. But, you know, TNG, and, you know, I think you guys would agree with me, Women of Warp, you know, it lacked a lot of strong female characters in nurturing roles, you know. I mean, Crusher and Troy are fine, but it's like, she's the doctor and she's the counselor, you know. You killed off Tasha Yar years ago. Pulaski was good as far as, you know, having some agency to her. But Ro
when Jerry
was
Taylor
the best.
came in, she tried to increase the non-nurturing aspects of the women on TNG.
Very true. Yeah, we got them in the center chair, you know, this season is great.
Yes.
But yeah, you see Ro come back, like, yeah, man, we need more of this on TNG. Ro's great. Michelle Forbes is great. The majority of the episode is her personal journey. We really don't spend a lot of time with the crew of the Enterprise here, do we?
Not really, but all of the the reasons they give as to why she is the perfect person to infiltrate this Maquis cell, all of her background, her culture, her experiences, are exactly why she is realizing that she sympathizes with them and wants to fight with them against the Cardassian oppression in the area.
Yeah, she's almost too perfect for the job, obviously.
Clearly. I think it's interesting and kind of true to this character because of the relationship she built on the Enterprise, that she doesn't regret leaving Star Trek. She doesn't regret leaving Starfleet, but her only real regret is disappointing Picard. But nobody at this point, I mean, it's very early in the whole Maquis storyline, but nobody at this point, character-wise, is resentful of another character. Nobody is they're upset that they're going to not have Ro around anymore, but they're not angry with her. They understand her choice, and she understands their choice.
Yeah, it was a really mature moment at the end of the episode where it's her and Riker. And, you know, that's when she turns coat to join the Maquis, and it's her and Riker in the ship, and before she leaves, you know, it's the two of them, and he doesn't really try to stop her or anything. He's like, all right, well, goodbye, Ro. You know, I mean, and that alone shows that they had come a long way in their relationship, because when they first started, you know, Riker and Ro just hated each other, you know, for so long. He didn't respect her, and she didn't respect him, but you can tell there was a mutual respect and understanding there between the two of them when she decided to leave. And then, yeah, that last scene in Picard's ready room, right, where Riker comes in, kind of gives him his report, and leaves, and just Picard's just sitting there, and you can just see the wheels turning, the disappointment on Patrick Stewart's face. Just a great silent acting moment from him.
Yeah, it's fantastic in a lot of ways, and we didn't even know it at the time, but it was totally setting up Voyager.
Yeah, in a much better way than Journey's End.
Oh, Journey's End.
Oh boy.
Oh.
But yeah, so what's your take on the Maquis? Are you like, because I side more with the Federation. Like, well, maybe you guys shouldn't move to these planets that were in enemy territory. You know, maybe, I know it's not that black and white, but I mean, come on, right?
Oh man, it's difficult, right? Because it seems like a lot of the colonists in the area are Bajoran, right? And they're the ones who have been dealing with Cardassian occupation for so long. And it's not really enemy territory anymore, or at least it's not supposed to be. So, I don't know. They don't give us enough about the politics around these situations for me to make a real decision. But, you know, based on what we're presented with of the Maquis, if what they're saying is true, and, you know, the Cardassians are arming themselves and the Federation is not defending their colonists, then, yeah, they definitely have something to be upset about.
Well, there are two sides to every story, so and it makes for good drama, though. You know, I find it ironic that the Maquis are best used on the Next Generation and Deep Space Nine when they were pretty much created for Voyager. You know, I'm just saying. All right, but yeah. So I would have liked to see, you know, we leave Ro in an interesting place here. I would have liked to see her come back, but I guess Michelle Forbes was too busy with her awesome movie career she left to go do, right?
Hey now. But yeah, I mean, by all accounts, Star Trek wanted her back. They wanted her back on DS9. I think I've even heard that they tried to get her, you know, for longer term Voyager, but she was not interested. And okay, I mean, I'm glad we got the stories with Ro that we did get, because she's a fantastic character.
Yeah.
And so many of her stories are stories that laid the groundwork for bigger things, not just Preemptive Strike, but her earlier stories as well. So I think she was a great addition to TNG while we had her. I wish we had her more, and I'm sad that we didn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel exactly the same way as you. You know, and I did like how they explained how she was gone, because she was in a lot of episodes in season 5 and just one episode in season 6, but we didn't see her for large gaps of time. And I do like they at least explained in universe, oh, Lieutenant Ro, you're off at security training and you got a promotion. So that at least explains why she wasn't around very often at the end of TNG.
Yeah, I mean, talk about Garrick being in, 30-something episodes of DS9. I think Ro was only in about 10 of TNG.
Oh, yeah, 10. I think, it's less than 10. I think it's like 8 or something like that. But everybody knows Ensign Ro, right? Well, hey, she had her own episode named after her, right?
Absolutely. All right, so I think that just about wraps it up for us today. Zach, where can everybody find you on the internet?
Well, for me personally, you can find me at MoronZach. That's MOOREONZACH on Twitter. And I'm also the host of my own podcast, Always Hold On to Smallville, about that young Superman TV show. And we're on Twitter at Always Smallville with 1 S. What about you, Sue?
You can hear me on Women at Warp or on Twitter at Spaltor. That's SPALTOR. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll be back tomorrow with one of the best series finales of all time.
The Collaborator.